young brown girl, so I'm going to read a few of these letters addressed to a brown girl. Dear brown girl, after all this, you still ask me how it is I arrived at the poem. I want to tell you something about my rounded, looping penmanship in berry-scented ink. I want to tell you something about typing my words on an old typewriter, pushing its carriage return, poems with no correction tape. I want to tell you something about drafts upon handwritten drafts, about the smell and feel of so much cream and marbled Florentine paper, about cutting class and taking the afternoon to shop for handcrafted notebooks and writing implements. I want to tell you about my pink ink lowercase i's dotted with chubby hearts. I held so much unrequited sweetness. I want to say I was waiting, but I don't know what I was waiting for. So much ache, so much breaking. I want to say so much about silencing and time. Dear brown girl, remember those diaries we were gifted as young girls, pale pink and floral, embossed with golden curly cues? Remember that tiny golden lock and precious key? Remember wanting to crawl inside and hide there? Remember how not speaking yielded so many secrets? Remember how you'd write and write, like if you didn't write, you'd just die. Like if anyone ever read what you wrote, you would just die. They'd say, artista ka talaga, sus Mario sa balat. And you'd cry, of course you'd cry. Remember when you were 19, your poems were so honey-coated. Your language was not really your language. It was so sugary, fancy, and high. You wrote about things you didn't know how to write about. 19-year-old girl living on top ramen at minimum wage. Remember how you blew a whole paycheck on a Waterman Laureate mineral blue fountain pen and tender purple ink? How you transcribed your finished poems into the matching hardbound violet marble journal edged with gold leaf. You loved that scratch of gold-plated nib on paper. You gazed at each glossy page air drying before you turned the page or closed the book. Dear brown girl, nobody ever read your poems back then. And then again, none of those poems were for them, diba? Dear brown girl, what if nobody cares except your brown sister fighting for air as she is trampled underfoot, her hair and clothing pulled by those clawing to hold her back? Your brown sister is tending to what's been broken. She might be concussed. Why should she care for you when you just knock the wind out of her? What if nobody cares but the other three dark folk crouching outside the room, big-eyed, thirsty like you? How are you going to pretend you didn't just claw at them, pull their hair, step all over them, and push yourself forward and into the room? How are you going to make them care for you now? You mistook yourself an honored guest. White people keep telling you to refill their glasses, give the guest rooms a quick tidying up, wash their soiled linens. They proposition you and grab your ass. They are impressed you do not protest. They love your nodding and smiling at exactly the right moments. They are impressed by how well you mimic their tongue. It's like a little song. Dear brown girl, what if I told you that you don't have to do as you're told? Yes, you can cut up the script that they made you recite by heart with your cut-up tongue. Yes, by those people who wanted you to be their lace-trimmed, pink silk ribboned, heart-shaped box. Yes, they wanted you to let them open you up. They wanted to slit and split you open, all of your little smooth pieces, to mouth you, to melt you, as if you would just let them. Yes, you are allowed to open, twirl your butterfly-bladed words. Siete cuchillos, I see you, sister. Your swift knives concealed under your lace-edged, silk-ribboned skirt. Dear brown girl, you have come to me to ask how a brown girl writes and lives and writes, when it feels like no one cares. You have come to ask me whether it is true that no one cares about some brown girl. You have come to me because you need me to see you. Yes, it is true. If our identities are not for sale, then no one cares about some brown girl. I'm sorry if what I'm saying here are not the things you want to hear from me. Some say it is bourgeois privilege for the battleground to be the page. I think the page could be one weapon in our armories. Diversity, inclusion, and multicultural blunt the narrative. Patriarchy and empire disorient. Status and privilege pervert our aim. Let's put those words back on the shelf where they belong. I have no identity to sell. What is mine is precious to me, though others would tell me nothing is mine, not the air in my lungs, not the ground beneath my feet. You may unfollow me on social media if you don't like what I'm saying, and this is okay. You ask for kindred words from me, because like you, my ancestors' words are slowly losing their ground. You have come to me fearing kapwa, hoping I could allay this fear. You have come to me seeking kapwa, hoping I could clarify this sight. I learned that kapwa is seeing the self in others. I think of kapwa as a sanctuary of shared selves. Speakers of our elders' words do not wish to see themselves in the flushed and stuttering selves we've become. We can't find the correct idioms fast enough. We no longer know the correct accent marks and glottal stops. We came of age here, silent, witnessing kapwa's erosion and erasure. You want me to affirm that the proper response is outrage. You want me to affirm your outrage. Yes, there is outrage, a heat in my blood. It is a silent, slow, and steady burn. But there is so much sadness, being so torn from my elders and kin. But there is so much noise, so much shouting above the shouting. This is where we start shutting other people up, deciding who gets to speak and what they get to say. This is where we assign a price to voice and who must pay in order to speak. This is where we come to buy and sell voice, and then voice is only for those who can afford it. This is where we invent adages about voicelessness. And we continue to shout the things other people are shouting. And we continue to shout, and it becomes easy to ignore all of this shouting. And we continue to shout, and it becomes easy to pretend nobody is shouting. I want to think we all resist becoming the thing we are shouting at, but this may not be true. How may we honor this thing called voice, and how can we honor our kapwa? I fear all the shouting depletes our lo'ob, which is where the wisdom of our elders has rooted. Conquerors documented this wisdom as superstition, godlessness, the lore of lowly women and unenlightened people. You have come to me asking that I serve as a beacon, and now I see we had not previously agreed on what needed illumination. We now busy ourselves with curriculum vitae items, noteworthy mentions, hit counters, hyperlinks, and into social media posts from glass ceilings, the droppings of names onto unswept, gum-stuck floorboards which barely cover the dirt. I do not know that our elders envisioned this dim administrative morass for us. You must understand, I thought we came here to discuss liberation, and now I see we had not previously agreed upon defining this term together. One brown girl's liberation is another brown girl's bloated bureaucracy, monuments of microaggression, mansplaining, and migraines. One brown girl's woke is another brown girl's mess of vacuous memes and info bites, as if these things were precious, clean water during centuries-long drought. Why must one brown girl's words doom another brown girl to erasure? Why must one brown girl's words be buried for being too much, for being not enough, for being unlike everyone else's? Can we return to that lo'ob, where there is potential for ourselves to grow something other people, we ourselves, do not expect? We can world build unorthodox, fierce from our lo'ob, bare, unmapped places, using everything we can get our hands on. Remember, our elders were experts at third world improvisation, filling our bellies despite famine, salvaging masterworks from basura. We marvel at how low and few the parts are required for making masterpiece. Let there be no romance, no artifice here. Our elders' world building gave us life. I now see my late father's love for swap meets and junkyards through a different lens. He took the broken, the throwaways, last year's off-brand items, inkjet printers, scientific calculators, so many lenses and glasses, digital wristwatches, remote control race cars, landline telephones. He disassembled, he tinkered, and reconfigured these into something else. Sometimes you break open the old thing, if only to find that one reusable part. Sometimes he made art, and some won ribbons affixed to their title plates. This was my father's Lo'ob. Sometimes he failed, and we were left with his jagged mountains of parts in his garage. This was also my father's Lo'ob. He was a master of salvage and scavenge, and we were ashamed of his junk. I want to think this was my father's way of telling us he knew the sheen of prestige in this country dulls. I want to think he knew we could never buy prestige in the first place. I never wanted to agree with him. I fought with him until I could no longer deny much evidence was in his favor. I thought all of my classmates lived in accessorized Barbie dream houses. Arranged tidy inside their Barbie dream houses, lemon oil polished dining sets. I thought all my classmates lived matching Tupperware lives. Arranged tidy inside their Tupperware, PBJs on uncrusted Wonder Bread. They were whole and wholesome, and we were something else. We learned the words for what we thought. We learned the words for what they thought we were. We took those words into our bodies, and their dull blades hollowed us to incompletion. We were told to translate hiya as shame. Others translate it as propriety, a dignity that comes from inside, that Lo'ob, and this is a lot different from shame. My father's art pieces were sometimes incomplete, and that itself was the narrative. Let there be no shame in being incomplete. My father's art pieces were sometimes imperfect, and that itself was the narrative. Let there be no shame in being imperfect. I am one of my father's incomplete, imperfect pieces. My father's junkyard scavenge is now my unruly poetic statement, my verse monstrosities, my mixed up diction. I am trying to assign it order, but most times it will not abide. People say, why aren't you ashamed? People say, why do you broadcast our shame? People say, why don't you shut up? People say, why are you still here? People say, why haven't you disappeared? Have you ever been made to feel so little? Have you ever made anyone feel so little? If art is a series of fine lenses, then the shame is not hard to see. Beneath these lenses, we are misfitted parts jammed together, fractured at the edges, dirtied from so much mishandling. Beneath these lenses, we are sad little colonies hoarding secondhand items. Beneath these lenses, we are sad little colonies frantic for our grime-covered shelters. See how we are not a smiling, suburban, single-family, home-owning, TV sitcom, nuclear body. Inside the body that is our overcrowded house, our fists have made holes in the walls. Our hands throw glass, mismatched plates, any object within reach. Inside the body, heat rises, fibers tear and unravel, vessels collapse. The body shuts down. Inside the broken, dark, dirty people we are, the Lo'ob has been torn from us. It continues to be torn from us. This is trauma. This trauma is not a little thing that you can brush off your shoulders. This trauma is not a little thing that makes you interesting and diverse. You want to smack a smug motherfucker in the face for saying that to you. If your Lo'ob is torn from you, this is an act of terror. If your Lo'ob is torn from you, this is not done by an invisible hand. If your Lo'ob is repackaged, relabeled, and sold back to you at a premium, send it back. This jagged wound, opened and salted for others to enjoy how we smart. This is terror. At some point, we stop asking who is assaulting us, the pleasure they derive in tearing us from our Lo'ob. I think we should start asking again. I think we should start asking why. Inside the body, roots thicken and tangle to repair us. It may not be pretty, but it'll hold us together. I am not sorry if the things I am saying here are not the things you wish to hear. You may unfriend me on social media, you may block me on social media, and I will be okay with this. Maybe the old translates as heart. I think the heart is only part of that. I don't think that we should stop making art from our lobe. Do you? One last dear brown girl.